the PM edition. The spread of the COVID-19 virus could affect how NGOs raise funds. Now, due to the virus, many of them are now battling to raise sufficient funds to continue their work. What do they need to do to ensure their survival? Well, to help us answer this question, I'm joined via Skype by Nazeema Mohamed, the Executive Director of Inyathelo, the South African Institute for Advancement. Nazeema, good afternoon and thank you for joining us. Outline for us some of the key challenges that NPOs are faced with in this outbreak of coronavirus and the state of national disaster.
Hi, good afternoon to you. One of the key challenges that we confront is that most NGOs are either micro or small, which means that they have, with micro NGOs, they have less than 50,000 rand an annum in their accounts. With small NPOs, they earn up to about 500,000 rand per annum. And so what we're afraid of that is that over the next few months, they're not going to be liquid. They're not going to be able to afford to pay staff, and they're going to have to shut down. The other thing that we're concerned about at Inyathelo is that, you know, we've seen a wonderful response by government to the issues that we confront. We've seen philanthropies come to the party. There have been huge donations. We have a solidarity fund. But we haven't seen a lifeline being thrown to civil society, to nonprofits, who play a really significant role in the country. And so we're concerned that this is going to be a crisis for us and that the NGOs that have played a role aren't going to be able to continue. Many NGOs don't have reserves to keep them going over the next while. And so we're going to see them crashing, you know, one by one in the next 6 months.
Now, Nazeema, this is a real conundrum, isn't it? Because you've got the scarcity of funding, but you're going to see an escalation in the requirement for services for NPOs. So there will be demand for those services. How do you suggest NPOs should navigate this, particularly when it comes to holding on to their employees?
So there are several things that they can do. Where they do have funders and people who have donated gifts, is to stay in touch with them, to keep those relationships going and to build those relationships. But the other thing that we have to do is to build alliances. And there really is a need to approach government at this point, to speak to the presidency, to speak to the Solidarity Fund holders, and to say that we're concerned that there's a crisis that's about to unfold, and they really have to support us in this crisis. We have seen the increasing demand on NPOs at this point. I mean, basic issues like having enough data to stay in touch has become a problem. Having personal protective equipment to go out into the field is an issue. And so there are huge challenges. And while we can speak to our donors and we can speak to existing funders, I don't think that's going to be enough at this point, because we've seen our philanthropy reserves depleted over this time. And we've been informed by funders that they're going to have to cut back on funding and change the way in which they've been doing things.
Long-term relationship and approaching this in a holistic manner is what you're suggesting, Nazeema. But what is the conversation that the boards, the directors of these NPOs should be having right now with those who are employees in their organizations?
Look, it's really important to be in touch with your staff, to ensure that they're safe, to keep checking in. Our board has been doing that on a weekly basis, and they've also been hands-on in terms of saying what you need, how can we assist you, can we speak to funders, tell us. I think it's a time where leadership has to be compassionate, and they have to be concerned about the public good, and they have to be concerned about social justice issues because of the huge inequality confronting our society.
Financial management, I suppose, is going to be quite key in this particular point. Do you suggest in any way redirecting some of your spend or maybe cutting down on projects that you will be supporting? I mean, what is the tip that you could give to NPOs at this time, particularly when it comes to the aspect of managing their finances?
So we're living in extraordinary times, and that requires extraordinary measures. And so it's not business as usual. We have to rethink how we do things and how we do things more effectively and efficiently. And so I suggest that, we have COVID plans of actions, and we've seen many NGOs respond in that way, where they've been totally responsive. And this is the time for responsiveness. This is the time for all hands on deck and everyone coming to the party and making whatever contribution it is that they can. It's not really about sitting at home and doing nothing and watching Netflix. It's really thinking through what your contribution can be to make the situation better. What is a constructive role that you can play in relation to assisting and mitigating the risks that confront us?
Chances of funder fatigue at this time, because there is, of course, a lot of requests as we speak right now from government, from private sector, from health professionals, from everywhere for people to lend a helping hand. Are we likely on the other side of this lockdown and going forward, going to see maybe even some kind of donor fatigue?
Look, there's fatigue confronting every community. And yes, of course, donors will feel fatigued because there will be more requests for funding. But we're also seeing new types of philanthropy emerging out of this virus, out of this crisis. So you've seen neighborhood collective action networks taking place. We're seeing communities coming together and saying, what can we do to support you? So the one thing we've always said to NPOs is that you can't just accept funds without looking at the operating costs. How do you pay salaries? How do you pay electricity? In this case, how do you pay for your data? So when communities make donations, they also have to think about the NPOs who support them in executing the plans that they have in place and to make sure that they stay operational, that this isn't just for programs, it's also about keeping NPOs going so that they can play the roles that they've played.
And Nazeema, before I let you go, final question is the question of monitoring and evaluation, because some organizations will open their doors, open their coffers and give. I suppose it's going to be very critical, especially with the scarce resources at this time, for funders to get evidence that their money that they're spending or the resource that they're giving actually goes to where it's meant to go.
Of course, that's about accountability. And, before the virus, in Inyathelo's capacity building, we've always stressed monitoring and evaluation, and we've always stressed accountability. You are accountable for funds that have been given for the public good, and you need to be able to demonstrate that you've spent the money appropriately. And so that's about giving reports to your funders, about showing the work that you've been done, about showing how the funds have been spent. It is critical, especially in a time where we've seen so much corruption. We need to actually shift the values base and show that we are accountable.
Nazeema Mohamed, Director there at Inyathelo, appreciate your time and thank you for joining us this morning. The gift of the givers is stepping up efforts to assist